We're talking tuck pointing on the open source. I'm Bonita Cornute. In a minute, I'll tell you about a church that teaches kids the skills and then they make repairs to your house. In 1996, New Fellowship Church wanted to provide job training and mentoring to young adult men. They developed the Harambee training program that teaches kids 12 through 18 masonry repair. Zach Hamilton is one of two owners of Harambee LLC, and he's here to talk about how the youth program works and the masonry work that his company provides. Zach, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This sounds like a very interesting program. How did it start? Why masonry, first of all?
Actually, it started as a program to get the kids from 12 to 18 kind of something to do over the summer. Masonry just happened to be the something. There was a gentleman who worked there who was a master mason, and so he taught the kids. And actually, the program, I think they started, because I wasn't there when they started.
Okay.
They started doing, I think I've heard like landscaping stories or like some other things, and masonry just kind of was what landed.
Get the kids off the street in the summertime, give them something to do.
Yes.
And when you do that, you're probably working with kids who know very little about anything and need a lot of guidance.
Yes, they're like any other average kid, 12 years old, comes in, they know nothing about masonry, so they come in, they teach them how to do it. The younger kids are mixing mortar and doing some of the labor type work, and then the older kids are actually tuck pointing, which is great because by the time they're 18, they actually they have a skill.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you think about masonry, St. Louis is known for its brick. So
Yeah.
what better way to start
Right.
working with young people and giving them something to do? What is it about St. Louis brick? Is it particularly unique?
There are a lot of brick structures in St. Louis. Back when a lot of the buildings were built a few hundred years ago, they were all masonry. So they built buildings, even some of the larger buildings, some of the commercial buildings are full masonry. So you tear the wall down and it's masonry 100% through. It was just the way that they constructed it. It would be way cost prohibitive now to do that because the expense of the labor just to do it would be.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am.
So at this point, we're not even going to see this kind of brickwork from ground up, new construction, I should say.
No, not historically. Most of the new buildings that you see now are what are called a masonry facade. So they'll be framed and they'll have another structure. Back 100 years ago, masonry was actually the structure of the building. That's how the building was held up. It was held up on the walls, or they have columns or something on the inside. But now they're held up differently.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, the program is both, what you're doing has evolved from that not-for-profit to a for-profit company.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain why. How did you do that?
So, like I mentioned earlier, we started as a way to get young people kind of something to do over the summer. So the kids were between 12 and 18, and we taught them how to tuck point. And what happened was when the kids started to age out of the program, we heard some of the kids were getting in trouble or were doing some other things that we weren't so fond of. And
You can just imagine.
yeah, and it's different. It's a lot different when you know a kid or when you read about a kid on the news. When you know somebody, you say, hey, that kid's a lot of things, but tough isn't any of them.
Yeah.
So at that point, we knew we had to do something so we could give these kids that were graduated out of the program something to do. So basically what we did was we said, hey, look, so if you guys want to work, this is what we'll do. We'll bring you in and we'll give you a skill. A lot of the kids hadn't seen somebody go to work, so they didn't realize that you had to get up every day, same time, and go to work and get back. And they didn't really understand what work looked like. So what our goal really was to do was to get these kids to kind of understand what work looked like, give them a skill that was marketable, and then let them go out and find gainful employment. Because that way, all the other kids that were coming through the youth training program that wanted to be masons, they'd have the same opportunity. So they come in, we train them, get them job ready, and then send them out to work.
Were they hired?
No, no, they weren't hired. We had a tough time getting any of our kids hired, even though they had the skills and they were there. I mean, we just had a tough time.
The contractors weren't interested in them because of who they were or
Yeah.
where they came from?
Yeah, St. Louis has a long history of being kind of difficult for certain groups to kind of get into work in the area. So it was just hard. They weren't really given the opportunity to go to work. So we did that for, man, it was 15, 20 years. The goal was to get the kids work
Yes.
ready, and we just ended up having to kind of keep doing it because we weren't having any success in getting our kids jobs.
So then you decided to create the LLC?
We decided to create the LLC. We ended up, I mean, the LLC was kind of we're actually out doing the work, and we were doing it under a not-for-profit, and we were wanting to make sure that we didn't jeopardize the not-for-profit side of it. So at that point, we were committed to the group of guys that we had, guys and girls actually. We were committed to the group of young people that we had, and we wanted to make sure that they could have gainful employment. Because at this point, some of the young people had been around since they were 12 years old, and they are 23, 24, 25 years old now. And so it's not like we're telling a person that we don't know, okay, we don't have any work for you. I mean, if these people we've had relationships for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you wanted to provide them with that opportunity.
Absolutely.
And how is it going now?
It's going great. Yep, it's going great. We've been an LLC for 6 years now. It's been 6 years, and we've been able to land a few jobs and get some work, and it's been good.
Tell me about some of those jobs. Some as big as WashU.
We do some work for Quadrangle, which is wonderful. That's the WashU housing. We did a pretty big job for a few contractors there. We've done a lot of commercial work with a few general contractors in the area. We still do houses, and we do jobs from $300 to $100 million and a half, $2 million. So we have a wide range.
You tell me that you're doing better. You're doing good now. Just how good are you in comparison to the other masonry companies in the area?
Well, I don't know how the other masonry companies are doing, but we are probably the third or fourth largest masonry company in St. Louis.
That says a lot.
Yeah,
third or fourth.
Yeah, we have quite a few masons. You have to remember that when we started, our model wasn't to be a company. Our model was to get young men and women a skill to work. That was our model. And so we weren't training people to be, we weren't coming up with strategies to run a business.
Okay.
We're coming up with strategies to train people to be masons.
Gotcha.
So all of our employees are on a track to be masons. So when we started with like 20 masons. We didn't have like laborers or helpers or any of that kind of thing. We started with 20 masons, and which is great because you have all the young people with the skills, but it's also kind of tough because you have to pay 20 masons.
Okay, which is not cheap.
Which is not cheap.
What about the union? Are they able to get that union card? Is it necessary to make a living in this town?
It's definitely a lot easier to be a union contractor in St. Louis, and we've actually had a lot of conversations with the union, and we're pro what all the things that the union offers. It's just at this point we can't afford it. We would do it tomorrow if we could afford to be in it. We just can't afford it. The payments and the things, I mean, you have to do them immediately, and we're startup. And the way that I kind of explained to you earlier, most people when they start a company, they don't start with 20 or 25 employees. No. They'll start with right. 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, and so it's strictly an economic issue for us. We would have been out of business years ago which is interesting because, like I said, it's not like we're against the union. It's not like we don't appreciate what the union has done for the city. It's strictly an economic issue, and we're not the only company that's like that.
I thought you'd have to be. I thought it was a mandatory thing in order to do this kind of work in a city that has that union base. You'd have to be part of the union, but I guess not. You don't necessarily.
No, you don't necessarily have to be. It's definitely a lot easier.
Okay.
There are a lot of doors that open for you when you're in the union, and there's some that close when you're not. But it's not necessary, and we do like to kind of, we're not out, like I mentioned before, we're not anti-union or any of that kind of thing, and so we're trying. We want some of the same work, and we just want to do a good job and provide employment for our employees. So one of the things that I'm really proud of, and actually it was another one of those things that I think God was kind of in. So when we first started, probably about a month or so after we started, we actually made the decision that we were going to pay our employees the same amount of money that they would make if they're in the union. The reason why that was important to us is because we value them as much as anybody else valued any of their employees. Mm-hmm. Now at the time we had no idea how we were going to pay for it, but we did it, and it's worked. We've also here recently been able to provide health care and dental and vision and 401k program. So we provide benefits to our employees as well. So we're not one of these contractors that are out there just trying to make money off the back of our employees. I mean, we really do. It really is a family for us. And some of those decisions are hard because they're expensive, and they mean sometimes that the owners don't get to, are the least paid employees in the building. But it works. It works for us because, we want to do the right thing for our employees.
Now those young men, that's youth program. It still continues to this day. That's the not-for-profit, and you're working with low-income families or seniors in particular. How does that work today? Is it still the same?
Still the same. So
Okay.
the youth program does work with. They get different grants and funding from some private sources too, and they will do free tuckpointing work for seniors or low-income individuals.
And how do you go about that? How does a person?
There's an application process
Okay.
that they'd have to go through. They fill out the application, they come and they make sure that they qualify, meet all the requirements, and then they get on the waiting list.
Is there a waiting list? Do you have a long list?
So I actually don't know a whole lot about
Okay.
the processes of the youth. So, but I think there's typically a waiting list.
But there's obviously a need for this kind of work. As I think about it and look at our community, there are so many young people out here with nothing, who say they have nothing to do. But there are opportunities.
There are opportunities. There was. I'll tell you a funny story. So, and I'll leave names out to protect the guilty. So we were in a meeting once, and we're sitting there, and I had a guy ask me. He says, "So, the kids that you have there, they're from some pretty bad neighborhoods." And I said, "Well, I don't know what a bad neighborhood is, but they're from pretty bad neighborhoods, okay." And he says, "Well, how do you get them from like dealing drugs or causing trouble on your job sites?" And so I'm from a little bitty place, and what I realize is I realize that poverty and that has no color. And
That's right.
So after I was able to calm down for a second, I said, "So you deal drugs, right?" And he says, "No, I don't deal drugs." I said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Well, I can't do that. It's dangerous, and I don't want anybody looking behind me and do that." So that's the same reason my guys don't deal drugs. Nobody wants to do that. I mean, that's a life that nobody wants. But a lot of young people think that's the only option they have. Our issue actually isn't how do we keep that kind of stuff off our sites. My issue is I can't hire all their friends.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, we just don't have the work to hire their friends, because that would solve the issue. because nobody wants to. I mean, people want to be able to take care of themselves. They want to be able to take care of their family. They want to be able to take care of their kids. You know, some of them need to be able to take care of mom and grandma. And if you give them a job where they can do that, then they'll take it.
Well, it's so true, so true. Did he get the message? Did he understand?
I don't know. I don't know if he got it. I hope he did.
Let's not worry about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
How did you get into this? I mean, you didn't start at that ownership level.
Oh, I
You
didn't.
came
So
in.
I actually sat on.
Where are you from?
I'm from Mounds, Illinois, which is near nothing, actually.
Hey, where's Mount? I never heard of Mount Illinois.
If you're
I'm
from
sorry.
if you're from St. Louis, most people from St. Louis know where Cape Girardeau, Missouri
Yes,
is.
yes.
So I grew up 30 minutes on the Illinois side of
Really?
Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Yeah, it's absolutely it's near nothing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what's it near nothing? It's an hour away from Carbondale, where I went to school at. So I have an engineering degree from SIU in Carbondale.
Okay.
And it's about 30 minutes from Cape Girardeau. So that was like the nearest McDonald's, where we'd have to drive near a stoplight and all that good stuff. You know, we'd have to drive that far to get to it.
And you got into Harambee through that work, through your engineering experience.
So it's actually an interesting story. So I went to church in St. Louis, Friendly Temples, where I went to church. And I've done a lot of construction around and kind of helped with some of the work around there.
Oh, okay.
And
There's a lot going on in Friendly
There's
Temple.
a lot going on.
Oh,
And
Pastor.
Harambee was looking for someone who was affiliated with Friendly Temple and that would be interested in helping the youth. So I don't know how, but they somehow got my name. So I did a ride around with Aaron Henning, who's my partner now. He was the executive director of Harambee youth training program at the time, and we just kind of did a ride around. And if I'm honest, I wasn't impressed to begin with.
Impressed with what? You weren't impressed
Well,
with?
there were kids that were around and they were working and they were doing things, and I didn't understand kind of the levity of what they were doing. I did know that they were trying really hard, but I didn't understand kind of what they were doing. So we went to that. We did that ride around once, and then Aaron is really persistent. So he would call and say, "Hey, why don't you think about doing this?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So why don't you think about doing this?" Well, sure. And then after a while, I understood what was going on, and the relationships that they were able to form with these young people, and then the work, and then they started to do things. Because at the time, I've been in construction since I was 16 years old.
Okay.
Just kind of worked in a whole bunch of different places in the city and like different places, even like around the country. After a while, I would use Harambee. One, because they were
For your own construction work? Oh,
for,
okay.
for the different companies that I would work for.
Okay.
When they had brickwork, I would use them because I knew what the mission was after a while. So at this point, I'm sitting on the board. So he's convinced me I'm sitting on the board, and we're kind of in it together. I would use them for a couple of reasons. One, because I knew the mission. Two, quite frankly, because they were the best at what they did in town, bar none. So the skills that these young people had, they were the best, bar none. Mannerable, you walk. There's a guy who works for us now, actually a guy and a young lady who work for us now, that I remember vividly from when they were 14, 15, 16, kind of doing work, and we would hire them and they would do stuff, and they would come in, and I was blown away by the skill that these people had that weren't out of high school yet. It was just amazing. So we would call them, and they would come and do the work and leave, and it'd be wonderful.
So Harambee's in your blood.
Yeah, it is. I don't want to act like that I'm the originator of the idea,
No,
because I'm not. But
I know.
Man, I really the people that we work with, it's more than just a company. We never intended to be a business, and as a matter of fact, I fought it for a long time because I understand how construction works in the area, and I wasn't sure that it would work. And so I fought it for a while. I mean, not
Yes,
fought it,
but you were
yeah,
resistant.
I was skeptical. I was skeptical that it would actually work.
Well, it sounds like everything that you've described about this, both the for-profit and nonprofit, fall well under the name Harambee. What does Harambee mean?
Harambee means better together. It's like a community.
Amazing, Zach. Really, the story. This is just, it's kind of miracle work if you think about it.
It is.
This is what you're doing is miracle work. So, it's important that you get the support that you need and that you continue to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Yep.
Zach Hamilton, we appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Harambee's youth program benefits the kids and our overall community. Their masonry repair division keeps our brick structures beautiful and standing strong. Thanks for watching The Open Source. I'm your host, Bonita Cornute. We'll see you again soon.